Hello, everybody. My name is Gary Gomes. I'm here to talk with you again about Vedic astrology, what it means to you in your life, and what it means to the world in general. Now, this week I'm going to start uh, a free plug time. I am starting the school in March this year. It had some minor setbacks over the past couple of months, and but the school. So if you're interested in classes, please do contact me. Also, if you're interested in readings, please contact me at 508-525-0001 or at GaryGomesG@gmail.com. Those are the easiest places to get me. Um, and let's see now. Put my captions on. May not help, but can't hurt. Excuse me. And anybody who's interested in talking with me or sharing information with me or even appearing on the show, please do let me know. I'd be happy to accommodate you. And I will be having more guests within the next few months, just as a way to share information and share knowledge. Also, if you're interested in writing for Saptarishi Astrology, please contact me. I'd be happy to help you make that leap, uh, and uh, and we'll go from there. Okay. So let's see now. Okay, so we're going to look at the chart fairly quickly this week. I have a lot to cover. I actually think this is kind of an interesting time because we have basically no retrograde planets. We have planets which are, uh, we have two really strong benefics together. I'm going to share that screen again. So let's look at this chart. I'm actually doing this broadcast when the moon is in the first house, so that hopefully will be good for communications. The other thing I want to let you know is please like and share and subscribe to the video. We're getting up there in numbers. That's a great. It makes me really happy because then I can do more videos for you and more frequently. I do apologize. I wish I had done more over the past few months than I have, but just complications with no excuses, just complications I've had to encounter and deal with. Finally, seem to be resolving themselves, and I know they'll continue for another few months, but not as bad as they were before. Also, as I'm doing this broadcast this week, we have Jupiter aspecting the moon, which is pretty neat. Rahu and Ketu are almost always retrograde, and that's not unusual. But you'll notice the other planets, we don't have any retrogrades. We really don't have any. Let's see, we have any malefic aspects in the chart. Jupiter's aspecting the moon, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 is aspecting Scorpio, which is a friend sign. Mars is also aspecting Scorpio, so Scorpios and Saturn's aspecting Scorpio. So people with Scorpio suns or moons or planets in Scorpio are having some difficulties this week. Not entirely adverse, but some difficulties. And that'll disappear within, I would say, gosh, maybe about a week and a half or so, because Mars will be moving into Gemini. And I think one of the neat things about this particular aspect is, although Jupiter and Venus together can make us a little bit overly optimistic. That's one problem I've always had with it when I've been working with it as a planetary combinations. And I say this as somebody who has a strong Jupiter Venus aspect in his own chart. It can make people a little bit self-righteous. It can make them a little bit lazy, maybe too accepting of the status quo. But it's also a really nice combination because you have the two best benefics in really one of the best possible signs that can be in, essentially blessing the chart. And so I tend to have sort of a skeptical side to me because I've seen good events turn bad really quickly. And pretty soon Venus will be in the same sign with Rahu, aspected by Saturn. That's within about a week and a half. And Mercury will be in, Mars will be in Gemini, which will tend to make conversations a bit more aggressive. But I think actually one of the nice things I like about this particular combination is that a lot of truth comes out. And I think we're seeing this in the press. We're seeing, and this is true no matter which side of the political spectrum you're on, you can see a lot of things being uncovered. So, so this is not only in terms of right wing or left wing, but just basically people who've been misrepresenting things to us for a while are being exposed. Certain things are being revealed, which I think is always a healthy thing. And it's interesting because I think, to be honest, I think we've been. This is just my personal opinion. You don't have to agree with me, and if you disagree with me, I have no reason to dislike you or to criticize you. But I think one of the things we've been seeing has been like a large scale manipulation of information over the past few years. And it's not going to end anytime soon. I just think I think you really have to go through a lot of junk in order to see the truth. And this Jupiter Venus gives us basically a really clear picture of what's happening right now, right at this moment. It can be a little bit illusory because Neptune's also involved in this mix, if you want to mix Western astrology in. But I think it is sort of an interesting time to look at things and try to get as much accurate information as you can. This does make people more defensive of ideologies because Jupiter and Venus are both ideological planets. Jupiter in particular is a very ideological planet, and Venus is more pragmatic, but it has its own ideology as well. And the other thing we have right now is Saturn's aspect in Rahu. So government from all sectors is under attack. Rahu and Aries tends to make governments, tends to make us suspicious of governments. One of the things I'd like to just remind people of is this is the time when people are going to be dissatisfied with governments or leaders in general. Leaders are going to come under intense scrutiny. It's not even, but a lot of things that had passed for the truth are turning out to be, and like I said, this is true on both sides of the political spectrum, are turning out to be revealed to be falsehoods. And I think when Venus goes into Rahu, you'll see a lot of righteous indignation about that. And when Jupiter goes into Aries around late April, you'll see movements about that. But the only caution I'm going to give you is when these planets change signs, it'll be easier to be misled or misdirected. Uh, it'll be easier to take what people are claiming to be the truth um, much more literally and much less critically. So just watch yourselves, watch who you believe, because I think you'll see a lot of you'll see the temptation to lie or to reframe conversations coming up. But for me, it's actually been refreshing because I've seen people on both the right and the left essentially really being um, taken to task for a lot of things that we were told were absolutely true and are turning out not to be true. Um, Again, it depends on your political perspective on whether or not you agree with me. But I think it's safe to say that both sides have been attacked. Both sides have been revealed to be uh, a bit suspect. So this is sort of like, don't view this as being a time when you should feel disillusioned or distrustful of your government. View it as a time when you can see the truth about people and what they're doing, and view it as being a breath of fresh air. Because these times do not last. They tend to, they're almost like flashes of reality coming through the mist. So this is actually a great combination. Jupiter's Venus is going to be stronger than Jupiter towards in about 5 or 6 days. It'll be at its maximum exaltation. This is Jupiter's third strongest placement in the chart, so it's not really at its best. So I think you'll start to see more. Um, so Jupiter's normally attributed as wisdom. You'll see less inclination for wisdom and less inclination to work things out, but also less dogmatism because Jupiter, as I said, has a very strong belief system. Venus is more pragmatic. Venus is more practical. So I think, especially in terms of medicine, that's one of the reasons that some of the issues around medicine come out so strong. Venus rules allopathic medicine. Jupiter tends to rule more philosophical issues, but and that's why there's been a lot of focus on speech and on rights over the past few months. But this combination is kind of, it's interesting because we hit these periods periodically, and I'm going to tell my own horn and say when I was back in, um, this is even an aspect of it, regardless of uh, even before I was an astrologer, I could um, I don't want to sound too boastful, but I could tell when people were telling the truth and when they weren't. And I think, um, and I tend to be very non-ideological, not non-ideological. Um, so so when people look at me and they say, "Well, why do you believe that? How can you possibly believe that?" It's because I have again, like I said, I don't want to boast. I have a really good um, internal censor for when people are lying and when people are telling the truth. And I think um, I'm relieved as some of the things that are coming out now. Not happy, relieved, because you want the foundation to be, you want the foundation or the surface that you're working on to be solid. You don't want it to be built on a house of lies. And that's what this particular combination tends to blast away. The Saturn aspect on Rahu, again, is kind of an important aspect. Saturn's aspecting Scorpio. Mars is aspecting. So there are no other significant aspects in this chart, to be honest with you. And we still do have a cluster of planets over towards the north west, which is the Rahu area of the chart. So I think one of the things that you'll see over the next few months is essentially a lot of outrage, a lot of dissatisfaction. It doesn't mean that the people who are winning currently will continue winning, but it is a time for all of us to open our minds and say, well, maybe there was something to what those people said, or maybe there was something, maybe there's something a little bit more below the surface than what we accepted. And I think that's good. I think whenever that happens, that's a good thing. Okay, so enough preaching for now. But I think also this combination can make relationship life bloom. It can give opportunities. Just again, patience is always the best characteristic. Here we're looking at world events. People are looking more for the truth. The public, in particular, the moon is the public is in particular is looking more for the truth. Governments trying to control things with the Sun Saturn conjunction, and they're trying to control communications as well, with Mercury being in the same sign. So, but Mercury won't be in that sign for too long. And after that, you'll start to see a scattering of information, or a lot of people saying, well, that's wrong and that's confusing. So prepare yourself in maybe about 3 weeks for a lot of confusing and contradictory messages coming from both the media and from experts. Okay, so that's one of the things that you can look forward to. This right now is really the best information we're going to get over the next few months. When Mercury goes into the same sign into Pisces, where it's debilitated, you'll start to see more confusion, more attempts at obfuscation, more attempts at trying to cloud the waters. So it's not a bad combination. Mercury and Jupiter are in the same sign, but there'll be this sort of like what I would call an ethical twist, which will try to rationalize some of the information we found out is not true. So just be wary of that. And it's not an untruthful combination, it's a confusing combination. So a lot of the things that we've seen happening, like oh gosh, like so I won't go into all the political or health issues that have popped up over the past few weeks. And like I said, this is true on not only it's true on media side, it's true on politically, it's true pretty much across the board. But I think it's also really fascinating to see certain things come to light after they've been established as facts, and anybody who disagreed with them was going to get attacked pretty virulently. And that's really not I'm just trying to, what I'm trying to say is, if you attack right away, you don't understand. Um, you usually need some kind of measure and some kind of distance, emotional distance from a topic in order to assess something fairly. And nobody has had that. I mean, literally nobody has had that for a couple of years. So just when you're looking at news, and this is true across the world, when you're looking at news, don't dismiss an account because of the source. You can certainly consider the source, but don't automatically dismiss it because of the source. And that's true for people on the right and the left. Is it's not, the world is a complicated place. It's not, and perspectives are not truth. Okay, they're a perspective based upon information you have. They may be an examination based upon your belief system, but again, like I said, just make sure that your belief system is founded on a solid foundation and not just assertions. So let's go on to the chart. So we have the moon in Cancer. This indicates changes of governments. Again, we're still in this kind of a process. K2's in the fourth house. This indicates still some potential for earthquakes or violent weather. Sun, Saturn, and Mercury are in the eighth house, so there's still some subterfuge going on. And I use the word subterfuge advisedly. It's not, I don't think people are doing things to deliberately undercut other people, but they are doing it to try to control things. And in the eighth house, and there are also, one of the things that I found interesting is there's a lot of stuff coming out from intelligence agencies, which has turned out not to be true. Which that's something that I think we should sort of look at ourselves rather critically about, because we've had our intelligence agencies lie to us for a long time. This isn't new, but I think, and I think we're also seeing a lot of revelations about what I would call holy wars against one side or the other. So I think that it's time to tamp down the volume, tamp down the heat. Mars is going direct in Taurus again. It's time to figure out whether or not there's a foundation to any of these areas and who's telling the truth and who isn't. And that requires examination. It doesn't require a perspective from just one side. So again, over the Earth looks a little bit more peaceful right now. We still have the potential for volcanoes, earthquakes, and other natural catastrophes because of K2 being in Libra. We still have the potential for inflation because of Saturn aspecting Rahu and K2 in Libra. So trade routes are going to be hurt, and money is going to be taken away from us. Okay, K2 is a thief, and Vedic astrology is connected with liberation, but it also liberates you from your money. It is very creative, but it's also a little bit untrustworthy, to be quite honest. And the nodes essentially have this kind of masking phenomenon that goes on, or this sort of like Rahu and Ketu in particular tend to have a smoky quality to them. So they can deliver goods, but there'll always be a hidden price. So they can actually do good things, but K2 can set up unseen enemies or unseen obstacles, um, unexpected events like earthquakes and volcanoes and bad weather. And Rahu can essentially shroud reality. It can make us engage in a lot of wishful thinking, almost literally wishful thinking. So let's look at the individual signs, and then we'll look at where the problem areas are in the charts for the next couple of weeks. So we have, just checking my time. Okay. So Aries has Rahu in the first house. Mars is in the second house. So this sign will be a little bit aggressive in putting forward what it wants. And the main reason for this is because it doesn't feel like it's in control. You have Jupiter and Venus in the 12th house. Even relationships for this sign are a little bit tested right now. The seventh lord of long-term relationships is in the 12th house. A lot of people who have Libra have Aries rising will have relationship distance with their partners, and or maybe even illness connected with their partners. Moon is in the 4th house, so again, there's more focus on trying to ensure domestic tranquility than normal. And 5th house, Sun is in the 5th house, along with and it sits in Sun is the 5th house, Lord, and it sits in the 11th house with Saturn and Mercury, which indicates gains are there, but they're slow and they're rapid, and they go pretty quickly. The other thing is K2 in the 7th house relationship partners can be a little bit deceitful or a little bit dishonest. And we have that Saturn, Sun, Mercury conjunction along with Jupiter and Venus in the 12th house. That's going to be a little bit tough for holding out some money. So that's still true. That's been true for months now, but that's still true. You'll see some changes when Venus hits this sign within about a week, and when Jupiter hits it within about a month or so. Taurus has Mars in the 1st house, so there's a lot of focus on relationship life, and a lot of people will have arguments with relationship partners or disagreements with relationship partners. People in the sign will be stubborn. The moon is in the 3rd house in this chart, but they'll actually be more diplomatic than normal. K2 is in the 6th house. They'll have more enemies than usual. They'll have more proclivity towards illnesses. And 7th house Lord in the 1st house, there's a lot of focus on relationship life. And again, you have to watch out for moving too quickly into relationship partnerships during this period, because everything will look great for about the next 3 weeks with Jupiter and Venus in conjunction. Then it'll turn really quickly within about 2 weeks. So at least from this chart, Taurus has some gains coming this month. It has some financial gains, some financial improvements, maybe even hidden legacies coming in. And career life looks very strong and very solid, but also very consistently difficult. For Gemini has Mercury in the 9th house. Yeah, it's generally a good placement. It's in what's called a Raj Yoga with Saturn. So it will give increased financial growth, but it'll also give increased desire. So this sign may be a little bit overly ambitious this month. Jupiter's in the 10th house, very good for financial growth and financial success. And Moon is in the 2nd house, very good for popularity and good for financial growth as well. K2's in the 5th house. It's been there for a while. That'll make romantic life a little bit tough. our relationship partners will be a little bit tough to deal with. And Jupiter's in this sign right here. Now, keep in mind, Jupiter and Venus are still heading in between malefics. So even though this is a good placement, it won't feel that great for a lot of people. So I think in terms of relationship life, still some good potential there. A lot of people are understanding, but relationship partners will be a little bit down or a little bit depressed or feel frustrated. For Cancer, Cancer has Moon in the first house. Great time for reflection, great time for writing, great time for this sign to actually learn something new and actually check out new careers or new activities they can engage in. Ketu's in the fourth, home life is a little bit unsettled. Rahu's in the 10th, a lot of dissatisfaction with career life, but there'll be gains from career life as well. And also from this chart, Saturn's in the 8th house, Lord of the 7th is in the 8th house. So relationship partners, again, will seem a little bit down or a little bit depressed. But luck tends to be good for the sign. Career recognition tends to be good for Cancer. And financial gain tends to be good for Cancer. For Leo, Leo has the best planet for the sign in the 10th house. So this will be a lot of career focus for Leo. They'll manage to bring a lot of career activity to the fore. Ketu's in the 3rd house. They'll have a lot of courage this month. Sun, Saturn, and Mercury are in the 7th house. That's not a bad placement, actually. It does give loyal and beneficial business partners, but business partnerships don't tend to come together as quickly as you would like. And Jupiter and Venus in the 8th house can give unexpected windfalls, and Rahu in the 9th can give unexpected breaks, especially in terms of real estate and also in terms of public speaking opportunities. For Virgo, Virgo has Jupiter and Venus in the 7th house, so most people will tend to like Virgo this month. But the sign itself is a little bit depressed or a little bit downtrodden feeling because of Mercury being in the same sign with Saturn, really close to Saturn as well. And they'll feel like it has not really as many options as it really does. But a lot of people like this sign this month. There'll just be some delays in getting some things done. Ketu's in the 2nd house. Financially, it's just usually a difficult time for Virgo because Ketu's passing over the 2nd house tends to make, it tends to diminish savings or diminish earnings. Let's see now. Scorpio, its ruler Mars is in the 9th house, so that will give gains, financial gains, but only if the person's willing to fight for it. And I'm just checking the time. And for this particular sign, you'll see a lot of interest in intellectual advancement, a lot of interest in self-improvement, and a lot of purchases being made in that direction. Sun, Mars, and Mercury are in the 6th house, so this sign will have to be careful about its health for at least the next 2 weeks. After that, its health will improve radically. Rahu's in the 8th house, a lot of obsession with occult or metaphysical subjects. Mars is in the 9th house, a lot of study of those subjects, and Moon is in the 11th house, so good gains, financial gains from relationship partners, especially from females. There is a little bit of temptation for this sign to stray romantically, so if you're in a long-term relationship, be careful, be mindful of that. It doesn't necessarily mean that you will, but Jupiter and Venus opens up a lot of romantic opportunities for this sign. For Libra, Libra has Ketu in the 1st house, where it's been stuck for the past well over a year, and it's going to be stuck until around November, according to my calculations. And that particularly gives this sign a little bit more confidence, a little bit more intuitive ability. It can make it a little tricky or a little bit slippery at times, to be honest with you. And one thing that K2 in the first house has to watch out for is the sign becoming too intensely critical of itself. K2's Lord is in the sixth house, so that'll increase the desire for self-improvement. This is not necessarily a bad thing, but again, there's only so much you can do at a time, so try to keep that in mind. There's only so much new stuff you can learn. And also it can increase your expenses because of Mercury and Saturn being in the fifth house. It really does tend to drive up costs for this particular sign. It'll give gains, it'll give financial gains with the Jupiter Venus and the Sun Saturn combination. A lot of it will be used to learn things which will depress you. Rahu's in the seventh house, a lot of potential relationship advantage, but more so next month. And even next month, I wouldn't recommend breaking or changing relationship life. Just wait until November before you make any relationship decisions. I realize that's a long time for a lot of people, but geez, this chart, the Libra chart in particular, is really afflicted in terms of romance. So just be patient. Don't rush into things. Mars is in the eighth house. There can be some arguments with relationship partners. Moon is in the 10th house. Good time to change career or investigate new careers, though, and maybe even investigate writing. For Scorpio, Scorpio has no planets in the first house. Mars is in the seventh house, so this will increase the possibility of arguments with relationship partners. I think overall, this is one of the things which is a little bit of a pattern for Aries, Taurus, Gemini, and Libra, Scorpio, and Sagittarius, and Aquarius. There's this potential for arguments and being used in relationships, so just be a little careful about that. But the other thing is, the positive thing for Scorpio is you have 3 planets in the fourth house, so there'll be a lot of focus on home life. Jupiter and Venus are in the fifth house. That's good for children, good for luck, good for past life credit. Rahu's in the sixth house. Whenever you see Rahu in the sixth house, that's really good for self-improvement, for being critical of yourself. And Mars is in the seventh house. Relationship partners will help you with this process. They'll be happy to. And finally, Moon's in the ninth house, which, although Moon is considered a Bhatika planet, which is an unlucky planet for this rising sign, it also does tend to do some good things in terms of knowledge and gains. K2's in the 12th, so good for spiritual activity. Now going on to Sagittarius. Sagittarius has Jupiter and Venus in the fourth house. That reinforces the first house, although Venus is not a good planet for this rising sign. And Sun and Saturn and Mercury are in the third house, so that gives the Sun a lot of courage, a lot of ambition. So that's a good thing. Mars, Rahu's in the fifth house. A lot of potential romantic opportunities, but this is a dangerous year for romantic opportunities. Just make sure you go really, really slowly. Excuse me. The Lord of the seventh house is Mercury, is in the same sign with Saturn and the Sun, and this gives potential for serious or older business partners or older relationship partners. Moon is in the eighth. It can give financial gains, windfalls, attractive relationship partners. K2's in the 11th. Again, be careful about who you trust. I keep saying that for Sagittarius, but it's basically really, really true. For Capricorn, Capricorn is working hard. It'll pay off, but it'll pay off towards the end of the year. And also, you'll start to see some financial gains from that particular uh, work within the next couple of months. You'll start to see financial gains from the work you put in. For yeah, within the next 2 to 3 months. And Mercury and Sun and Saturn are in the second house, so it gives this sign a lot of authority, a lot of weight. It can command other people pretty easily. Jupiter and Venus give it good domestic skills. Rahu's in the fourth house. This is actually fairly good if you want to disrupt your educational life or disrupt your home life. If you've been wanting to do that or change things around the house, it's a good time to do it. Mars is in the fifth house, some arguments with children and over property. Um, Moon is in the seventh house, so again, good potential for relationship partners for this sign. Actually, only Capricorn is really the only planet I can see which has good relationship opportunities in it, or the only sign I can see. And also, at least from the chart, K2 summon out anonymity at work, but again, you'll get rewarded within a couple of months. For Aquarius, Sun, Saturn, Mercury in the first house, this sign will be really interested in getting into deeper subjects, really um, very positive month for this in terms of financial gains. And also, Venus with Rahu will give a lot of ambition for new activities. Mars is in the fourth house, so there will be some arguments with relationship partners. Moon is in the sixth house, so again, you have to watch out for some health issues for this sign for this month. And K2's in the ninth house, so you'll get some unexpected or some um, unrealized unexpected realizations about your situation. So it's actually pretty good. And there are certain debts or certain karmas you can free yourself from this combination. For Rahu in the fourth, I'm sorry, Rahu in the third and Mars in the fourth, just try not to say too many adverse things to people. Just try to stay out of arguments. For Pisces has Jupiter and Venus in the first house. Again, a lot of desire for money and financial success and a lot of courage. Moon is in the fifth, so you'll actually start to see some financial gains for this particular sign. K2's in the eighth house, so K2 is going to give some unusual or mystical experiences, a lot of deja vu experiences. And Sun and Saturn and Mercury are in the 12th house. That's actually good for getting rid of debts, getting rid of um, relationships which have proven not to be so wonderful for you. So it's time to say goodbye to people who are dragging you down or hurting you. Let's see now. So let's go to and I will include some lectures on remedial measures. I haven't forgotten about that. All right, so this is a good size map, which I'm happy about. So we have Jupiter and Venus in near Kauai in Hawaii and near the Aleutian Islands and near Alaska. So again, keep in mind, Jupiter and Venus are sort of like heavy water planets. So there can be a lot of heavy rains in this area, a lot of heavy precipitation, and even some panic near the Big Island in Hawaii and near the Aleutians. So this doesn't mean more balloons. I think it means um, more dangerous weather. And as we go over the moon on the west coast, the moon is going over Canada, Western Canada, Vancouver area roughly, and down into Washington State and Oregon and into Northern California. Now, the moon does indicate changes in governmental structures, but local governments usually and you'll start to see, I think, some more populist elements starting to gain traction in those parts of the country. There is a Mars line running through Utah, down through, I believe that is Utah, and down into New Mexico, along with Saturn and Mercury lines, essentially right in this area, right around the New Mexico Utah line. And I think you'll start to see some accidents, some industrial type accidents, maybe not on the rail catastrophe, but some industrial type accidents. And also a lot of reporting on this part of the world over here over the next few months. You have a Mars line running through Mexico, so Mexico should see some violent activity, and this will go all the way down through Argentina. Argentina just experienced power outages, and there was a Jupiter-Venus line running over this. So this Mars line essentially disrupted Jupiter and Venus, so they're trying to change over their energy grid, from what I understand, and they experienced some power outages. Jupiter and Venus, so let's look at the sun line over Texas, eastern Texas, and close to Louisiana, and up into the Dakotas, and into Canada. And I think you're going to see some governmental disarray in all those areas, governmental scandals, governmental attacks on government, basically, and also in Mexico, for that matter. There's a Jupiter-Venus line running through Puerto Rico, New England, roughly, and Nova Scotia, and it'll probably affect the East Coast, so there'll probably be some heavy rains in this part, and all the way down into Colombia, into Venezuela, and into Argentina. So some intense weather situations there. There's a Rahu line running through Brazil. Flooding is definitely indicated in Brazil again. And let's see now. As we go over here, down by Greenland, and then over to Western Africa, near Ghana, and Mali, you start to see a Mercury line. So you'll see more news coverage of this part of the world, and also more upsets in governments. There's a Sun and a Mars line running right through, and Iceland. Some more governmental scandals, maybe even in Iceland. Mars and Sun are passing through, roughly through, or affecting Portugal, Spain, France, England, and I think all the way down. This went a lot larger than I wanted it to. Sorry. And down into Gabon. Okay, so, and all the way through Libya. So there'll be some violence, I would think, in those parts of the world. Interesting enough, a lot of Europe is exempt. I need to look at Turkey more carefully. Turkey has a Jupiter line running through it. So maybe some flooding in Turkey, but not earthquakes, at least not in the Istanbul area, and maybe some water catastrophes, and also in Egypt and in the Sudan, and down through Central Africa, and down through Zimbabwe and South Africa. There's kind of a nasty Rahu line running up, and let's look at these lines right here for just a second. So it's a Jupiter Mercury line over here, and this tends to indicate a lot of activity in Eastern Europe, especially over Greece and Turkey, and I think you'll see a lot of political activity in that part of the world. But again, like I said, some danger of flooding. From over here, we have this is close to the Ukraine. Basically, this moon line is close to Ukraine, so a lot of public attention will be leveled around that. And a lot of public attention will be leveled on oof. Looks like Kazakhstan and down into Afghanistan and Pakistan and East and Western India. You'll see some bad news come out of those areas, maybe something to do with land catastrophes and again, I wouldn't put it past this part of the world to see some earthquakes. This moon line, I'm not crazy about this moon line because it's aspected by Jupiter. It can cause I mean, it's generally a good moon, but moon is in a salacious, so there'll be some government intrigue in this part of the world as well. Maybe even some attempts to overthrow governments. And this is true in Pakistan and Afghanistan. The sun over Bangladesh and Mongolia and Russia. So this is really, Tibet, excuse me. This is really Tibet. Mongolia is over here. But basically that's part of China now, at least in name. And so there should be some conflicts in that part of the world. And we have also a Mars line running straight through China. And also need to look a little bit more closely. And also a Jupiter-Venus line. So some governmental action being taken in Borneo, in China, and Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia, Myanmar. All those countries look kind of unsettled to me. If I look over here, Indonesia looks a little bit unsettled as well. Japan looks like it's in a little bit of a panic mode, so is the Philippines, and so is Australia. Not necessarily because it's anything really wrong, but it looks like financial panic to me. It's just given where Rahu is, and also some crises over leadership. And this is true in Borneo and Korea as well. So let's see now. And going over here to the furthest eastern portion of this map, the way it's laid out, we have government taking more extreme measures in Australia, more trying to think of the right way to put it, more control, more command of the citizenry. So I don't know how that'll translate in Australia. And we have a little bit of activity over here. Let me see if I can see that. One second. Near New Zealand. And New Zealand has a moon line, so that does indicate change of governments and also some economic pressure on New Zealand. So overall, it's not a bad map. It's certainly not one of the best ones I've seen, but I think the parts of the world I look out most carefully for would probably be England, France, Spain, North Africa, the Midwest, down through the populous area of Mexico, and also down through Argentina and Brazil, and let's see now, and Saudi Arabia, Iran, obviously Ukraine, And let's see now. And this Saturn Mercury line has me a little bit worried because there could be some earthquake activity over here and even all the way into China. So hopefully that won't happen. Turkey got swamped by earthquakes. I'm not seeing a further pattern. I can't rule it out entirely, but these patterns tend to be more flood patterns than earthquake patterns. So we'll see what happens. And hopefully everyone will be safe and secure and stable, and governments will start to act more rationally and less reactively than they have been over the past couple of years. All right, so my blessings to you all. I love each and every one of you. I love the fact that you tune in to see this this rather opinionated approach to Vedic astrology, but it's really I call it as I see it. So I'm not really, and again, I may not come across as being harsh, but I'm sure some people think I am. So but it's a pleasure to be with you. I love every one of you. I mean that from the bottom of my heart. Thank you very, very much for watching, and we'll see you next week. And hopefully we'll be posting more videos over the coming uh, uh, weeks and days. Okay. Thank you very much, folks. You have a great week. Again, I love you all. Bye. Namaste.